They won't want to lose everything. Mine's fine.
I haven't. I was looking at our website and stuff. Unless they have time to be able
Yes. Yes, I was.
Yep. I can't hear you.
All right, call the meeting to order. Start with Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Hockler,
Here.
Packard. Not sure Phyllis can hear us.
Can you hear us yet, Phyllis?
I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, yeah.
You can hear me. I can't hear you. What's going
Okay.
on?
That's a good question.
We'll go ahead and continue with roll call since we're going. So Smith,
Here.
Manning. I know Mike is going to sign on, so we'll maybe he'll catch us later. And Hammond.
Here. Can anybody else hear us on Zoom?
Yeah, this is Andy. I can hear you just fine.
Are you texting Phyllis?
Yeah,
I wonder if her volume's turned down.
that's what I'm
Oh, okay.
wondering.
This is Carolyn. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I texted Phyllis.
How do I turn that on?
Heard that.
I'm going to sign off and sign in again, see if there's something.
Okay. Well, they're doing good to answer. She can't hear us. Let's see, any conflict of interest declarations? Hearing none, approve agenda with the added Public Safety Center contract amendment.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Approve minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Are there any visitors to be heard? Hearing none. Clay County Park Advisory Committee. Well, one second. Let's see if Phyllis gets back.
Sorry.
Mike's coming on too.
Can you hear us now, Phyllis?
I can hear you now.
Great.
Sorry about that. I don't know what it was.
Nope. So Mike's joining pretty quick here, so we're gonna wait a second.
Okay. Very good.
I'm here.
Okay. So we've got through the agenda and the minutes. We are to the Clay County Park Advisory Committee update right now.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll turn it over to Lane.
Okay. Thanks. As the commission should remember way back when, seems like 5 years ago now. Anyway, a few months ago, you put a committee together to look at the Clay County Park and reorganization and all that. I got some notes in front of me just so I don't forget anybody's names, but I can't see who's on, but I know there's some of the members are here, but Bruce Plate was on it. Bill Kennedy and Bill's here. Carolyn Buttress, and I think she was on Zoom. Kelly Ashby, she's present. Rich Burns, I don't know if Rich is on. He was talking about maybe getting on Zoom. Shane Birch from the state, who is here, and then Christina Alaska from the state. Anyway, we met every 2 weeks for several months, talking about the park and reorganization and what we foresee it being moved towards, I guess would be the thing. Wanting to make the park more as a whole instead of just an emphasis on the campground. And that's why the reorganization of the park manager being an overseer of everything and not just the campground. And moving towards more of a campground work person to do the cleaning up and all of that. But it's difficult for those in the audience who haven't seen the documents to understand this, but it's all in there. We think it'll work. I know some other members would like to speak about this as well. But we created the bylaws also. And if you all approve kind of what is in there, Bill Kennedy is the current president of the park board. He is ready to move forward and bring all of that to the park board. And I can let him speak on it, but he's talking about getting the bylaws accepted at the annual meeting in March and all of that. If you have any questions, please ask, because like I said, I got paid for it. These guys didn't. You know, I'm salaried. So like last Tuesday, we were still meeting at 9 o'clock that night. So it's a lot of effort and a lot of time put in by people who only got from me last week. So they deserve some credit with that. And I will also mention that Tom and Karen Davies came in and met with us one night to talk about how to pay benefits and pros and cons of paying employees certain ways and keeping up with the financial stuff. So there was even a couple of outside people that came in and spoke for one night to help us out with things. So with that, anybody? Oh, if you want to come on up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Ashby. I was one of the members, like Lane said. I just think that the group of people that was put together to address this really gave some good thought to some challenges that present themselves with a structure like this. And I think that what was put together is really going to address a lot of things that will be in a positive light, instill a lot of checks and balances so that one person isn't flying solo on making, siloed decisions that needs to circle back and get either a second signature or something like that. So I feel confident about what the documents say. And so I hope that you'll be supportive as well. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bill Kennedy, acting president because of the passing of Terry Taggart. We knew we had problems. It definitely got pointed out to us approximately March of last year. Everybody was afraid to say anything. We don't want to offend anybody. Well, we've probably offended a lot of people now with these new rules. It was not an easy task. We didn't always agree, but we knew we had to give and take. I had run numbers for the last 4 years and I knew we really had to take. Some of them are a little obscene, hard to justify, but we just never looked at it before. Checks and balances now, purchases, labor and everything. Working closer with the state now. If this gets approved, I'm going to send it out to our board members for our meeting a week from tomorrow to look at, and I'm sure there's going to be some dissension. But I believe what we've got here will get passed as a whole and approved. And we realize you may have some comments on what we put in there. That's more than welcome. But I said before, the county commission is a driver. We're the workers down there. So we've got to do that. Geez, I just had a thought. Senior moment, we'll blame it on something like that. But as a whole, it will go forward. I think it'll be much better for us. Well, I know what it was, and I said this to the group last Tuesday. We're making some big changes, going to the Zoom 2-week limit on stays instead of some of the seasonal setups we've had or some of the monthly. There's going to be some rule changes. It'll be live more by the rules than what you want to do. And I firmly believe that the first year and a half, we're going to see probably a decrease in some campers. People who, well, hell, if I can't stay there a year, I'm not staying. That's okay. That's okay. And the same on monthly. But I think over at the end of 2 years, we'll see a different environment, more family. I think we'll be back where we're at. And to counter that the first year and a half, I also think we will see some savings. By God, we better see some savings. I don't know who the park manager will be, but I hope they're firm, because they are really the ones that got the handle on everything. So anything you got to say, we're thick-skinned, we'll listen. Thank you.
Lane, did you mention Paul Peterson's on the?
Oh, I did not mention Paul. I
And
even had
Paul
the
is-
notes in front of me, and sorry, Paul, you're on Zoom. So I guess if you got any questions for us, we'll answer it. Otherwise, if we just ask that, I don't know that necessarily has to be a vote and approval, but if you all are comfortable with it, we will send it on back to the park board, and we have officially worked ourselves out of a job.
Yeah, so I've got a few questions. One is, what's the fiscal year? I didn't see it in there, and we probably need to work out a fiscal year.
I believe it's currently January 1 to December 31st. We did talk about that, but I don't know that we actually set it. Part of what we set up in the bylaws is that financial committee, and that can be something that they look at just to make sure that everything's consistent throughout.
Okay, we probably want to put the fiscal year in the bylaws since it's our legal document.
Carolyn, are you on?
Yeah, she is.
She's on. Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
What is the fiscal year currently?
I'm not real sure. We go online and file that, the 990 sometime in September. I will
Okay.
have to,
Okay, I'm assuming it's probably a January 1 to 12/31 then.
Yeah, and so what would really help would be if at the end of the close of every fiscal year, we put in the bylaws, this is a fiscal year, and at the close of the fiscal year, an annual report is, written and given to the board and it'd be nice, wouldn't have to, but it'd be nice to give a copy to the commission too.
Yep.
I know there are a few other organizations that do that, and I always appreciate,
And we
seeing.
wrote it in there that the annual meeting, that is part of the annual meeting.
Great.
So, yeah, we can throw some dates in there. We can
Great.
figure that out.
And then the other thing I noticed is the annual audit. It doesn't say who does the annual audit. And I'd suggest that, maybe we want to include in there that each year, the president of the board select an audit committee of at least 3 people. And, having those 3 people, it's usually the finance committee. But having 3 people meet with the treasurer is so productive. Every nonprofit board I've been on, and I've been on nonprofit boards that, spend millions of dollars a year, and it really, really makes a difference to sort of close that
Yeah.
loop. But
And again, it's one of those things where I think it's H&R Block. Carolyn might know. H&R Block does some of the paperwork for you.
I have, is it Botoff or, Bodatoff?
Kyle, yeah,
Yep.
he's
Yeah,
good.
And-
he does our 1099s miscellaneous at the end of the year, which he has right now. But going forward, if we do W-2s, then it'll be, I'm sure we'll probably still go with him to help out on some of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
some of the thought on the audit was using them to help with that as well.
Yeah,
So-
and then if there's an audit committee that has a written statement, usually what audit committees come up with is a small, a short letter that says, yes, this is in compliance with the law and with the bylaws and everything else, then that can be appended to the annual report each year in March. So it sort of closes the circle and is, so it was another suggestion. So I wanted to ask Shane, I assume that we already know the answer to this, but I just wanted to ask Shane, you think 15 hours a month is good for a park manager?
Yeah, I think it can be balanced out there.
Okay.
One thing that we really want to key in on is.
Shane, can you come up
Get in,
here?
Shane. They can't hear you on Zoom.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that 15 hours would be probably enough time to be able to, check in with each of the facilities there, not just the campground. We wanted to make sure that the shooting range and the arena, all that was, had one point of contact. And, if we can find the right person, that's going to be the key. And the chain of command is going to be, going to work out really well. And then that person can report to the board. And so the treasurer would also report to that park manager as well, or to the board. And so you'd have the treasurer and that park manager as the top people. So, yeah, we thought, having somebody that can at least go in once a week and look at facilities and make recommendations. That person will be in charge of this, any kind of seasonal staff and the work campers that are in the campground as well. And making sure that things are maintained the way they should be. But we all agreed on that. I think it'll be good.
All right, sounds good.
That'd be about-
You've got the experience.
Yeah, I mean, and the few changes we made to the camping is the other thing we keyed on is making an equal opportunity campground where everybody can reserve a site and have the equal chance of getting that site. So that was a big thing too that we looked at.
Great, thank you.
So that would end up, that was a question I had too. 15 hours was about right. That ends up being what, 3 hours a weekend or something like that. The manager would actually be there 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's flexible. I mean, we don't say 15 hours for the month is all they can do. I mean, if there's other things going on, that could be a few more hours or a few less, just try to gauge what they would have to do, and making those weekly rounds and visiting with each of the, people in charge of the shooting range and the arena, and making sure that the maintenance is done there as well. So.
Anything else, Dick?
I had about 20 or so, some of them were just editorial, they were form changes, so I would suggest that we probably not adopt today. We get a chance to share with those guys some of the other comments we might have, or comments and questions especially. That was a main one, whether 15 hours was going to do the trick. Because I know if I were in those shoes, I'd probably burn 2/3 that 15 hours visiting with campers. And the other question I had, did you envision this to be about a 22 weeks tenure for that park manager? That's about how
Yeah.
often we'd be open.
Yeah, we looked at the April through October period, and there might be a few things outside of that, but that would be the bulk of the time where they need to at least have their, 15 hours in or so. Flexibility is probably important with that position. That's why I said we don't want to restrict it to maybe 15, but that was just a kind of a guideline that we thought it would take, being a smaller campground, and you have work campers in there doing most of the work, and maybe another seasonal or so to help with mowing and things like that. But
So we had down one manager position split between 2 campers for 40 hours a week.
that would be the work campers. What
Correct.
that one is. Yep. So that would say if you have a husband and wife running the campground. Yep. So they would be able to do the cleaning and the mowing in the campground area for sure. But we figured in that time.
I see.
Yeah.
And I was figuring the camping season to run from about April, for this year, it'd be like April 24th to September 17, but that'd be 22 weeks.
Sure.
So we'd probably have a week or two more than that by your estimation, the way it sounds.
Yeah. And then you look at, just getting the park open and doing the cleanup from the winter, and then also making sure everything's shut down and water lines are blowing out and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking like April 24th, that'd be assuming a May 1st opening. But maybe we need to go earlier than that.
Yeah, I mean, we start seeing campers the 1st of April, really, if the weather's, if you don't get a snowstorm or something like that, but.
Right.
And then we go up until November, or after that, it's very few campers. We close
Sure.
our facilities down eventually. But yeah. I mean, it's really changed the last few years, and people are really looking to get out and do things, especially with COVID. And it's a good, safe thing to do, and providing that for them.
No, we don't end up voting on these bylaws.
No,
We're
no,
just-
I'm thinking, yeah, I was just on the park recommendations.
Oh, okay, that's.
Yeah, and the the park board meetings, we've talked about that ultimately it's the park board that makes these decisions, but the board really wants to hear from the commission before they do that and know that they're kind of moving in the right direction. And this is a tremendous amount of work, and I'm just so appreciative of what this group did. It's just, I especially love the emphasis put on inclusivity and, really, fairness in terms of who stays and how long. and bringing in volunteers. That one volunteer weekend we had last spring, it was wonderful because a lot of people who were volunteers, knew the park, but a lot of them were new to the park. And it's a way of, this outreach with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and it's in USD, it's a way of making the park more open, bringing more people in. I hats off to you guys for what you've done.
No, this looks good to me too. Like I say, I've got a few comments and questions, but other than that, I think you've done a great job.
Mhm. Agreed. I was
And then
very,
the other thing, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead,
I was
Phyllis.
just saying, I was very impressed. Thank you.
Thanks, Phyllis. The other thing we keyed on too is the rules. Tried to kind of mirror what the state does, being state property. Try to stay the same with that, and so people know when they're going in there that, we keyed on the most important rules. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any other comments?
Dick, it's just probably my personal interest of getting this in front of the board, if nothing else, a preliminary. Do the items that you're speaking of, your questions and that, would they prevent us from getting this preliminary copy to the board to look at?
No.
Okay, that's, I didn't know if it's a huge change.
No, this was yesterday afternoon's first pass through.
Okay,
And I was thinking about doing a copy or so, and I had a little something for Drew too on the ordinance that he was working on. But yeah, no, definitely.
Okay.
It's meant to be helpful suggestions.
okay, good. I just didn't want to give them something. and
They'll
find
never
out,
happen if
Damn,
I don't
Dick
get 'em
changed
to
3
you."
pages.
Yes.
Okay, that's all. That was my question,
Sure.
because we want to proceed as quickly as we can because of the upcoming camping season. We have to get staff in place. We've got to get open back up on bonfire, because right now you can't reserve on it, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But it won't be long before we can. We just want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. So
We'd want to start on that in a month or so, I
Yeah.
suppose. Eh?
So on behalf of the board, but really on behalf of myself, thank you for being patient with us. You've been patient too long, and we're trying to improve, and we look forward to improvements down there. We look forward to comments from the county commissioners also. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last thing from me then. If you can email me your questions and all of that, I will include that with the stuff I'll go in and add the fiscal year and the audit specifics to the bylaws today. And email me your questions and I'll send all that to Bill because he wants to get it out to everybody.
Right.
And maybe even by email, we can get your questions.
Sure,
and all
sure.
that answered as well.
I figured I'd track you down and shoot a photocopy.
Oh,
So you
sure.
can just work
Yep,
from.
that'll work too. So, okay. Nothing else. We thank you and carry on.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just have to thank the board for what they've done. I mean, like Lane said, it may seem like 5 years, in the process, but I mean, from the day we upset the apple cart, which was putting it lightly, it's only been 7 months.
Yes.
So what the individuals who have done these bylaws and are trying to do, I mean, that's great. It's amazing what you've accomplished in that short of time. So thank you. Public hearing, comprehensive plan.
One thing, Shane, I see that we've got funding available for trails. Would that apply to us? Just interrupt for just a second. Yeah.
Yes, there's some funding available with the National Rec Trails Fund. And we can put in, requests for that cities, counties, state. So if you guys have any ideas or like to do any improvements, that'd be a good thing to do. If you need a contact, Randy Kittle in the Pier office, and I can get you guys a number for him. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah, Randy Kittle, right?
Yep.
Kittle.
Yep,
Okay.
he's the grants coordinator. I know we're gonna try something with Springfield. We got a paved trail over there that we want to do some work on, but there, any kind of requests that you can think of, it's a good time to do that. So thanks for bringing that up too.
Do you have any suggestions on our?
You know,
Our
being
system.
a multi-use trail, probably don't want to go the paving route,
No.
but, you know, maybe some more crushed asphalt or something like that. There could be some funds, you know, used that way. And then, in the future with the development next door, maybe we talked about that connector trail that would go over to the, water intake area there to connect in with that other trail. So there's definitely some opportunities down the road, if not this year, farther down the road.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Drew, do you want to start with the comprehensive plan?
Yeah. Just one quick. So,
You're gonna have to get a microphone. Unless you want to come up here.
yeah.
I don't know if that's gonna be cheap.
Be a little tough.
Take the spot if you want. Yeah.
There you go.
All right, so when I first started, before Cindy left, the idea was to update our comprehensive plan. It expires last, yeah, it expired. And then right as we tried to start that, we got with COVID. And we were able to get through it eventually. Kristen from CCOG, before she left, did a bulk of the work on it. I think we went through, and the 2/3 biggest changes. One, there was a lot of stuff in the old comprehensive plan that was almost a zoning ordinance. Stuff like the size of sizes or signs. And a bunch of other restrictions that were put in the comprehensive plan that didn't belong there. And we stripped that out, and that was probably the bulk of the work. The next change was allowing commercial uses along paved county roads. There have been commercial uses along paved county roads, it's just never been zoned for it in the past. This is kind of a chance to get them in compliance, and also possibly future other commercial operations out in the county. And the third was we were really asking some questions about joint jurisdiction, and a lot of discussion on that. So as planning and zoning board and myself present the comprehensive plan, that's kind of the three major changes that were in there. As far as any kind of public input from the general public, there just really hasn't been any. There's no comments came my way. I got one question from one or two township board chairmen, and that was about it. And then the city had a person about a year ago. And And that's about it.
So did the zoning board, you know, publish, you know, or as far as I know, there's not been kind of a public meeting that the whole public's invited to in the evening to have the plan explained to them. Can we, I mean, it seems to me like that's a really critical step. So having a public hearing before explaining the plan to the public is, you know, it's not surprising that there's no comments. I'm not sure anybody really knows about it.
It's been on the agenda for 2 years.
Yeah, but those are planning and zoning meetings at which it's discussed. So before passing this, I'd like to see a public hearing that's not 9 o'clock in the morning on, you know, and I'd like there to be a presentation to the public of here's the changes we're making and get some feedback from them, because I don't think it's that people are disengaged. I think people really care about this, you know, about the comprehensive plan of development, because it affects every decision that's made about land use. So it just seems to me that, you know, we need to present this plan to the public in, you know, layman's terms that they can understand, show them the maps and have a discussion and invite feedback. You know, I don't think publishing a legal notice, you know, really engages the public. I mean, there's a whole technology of, you know, getting public input. And I feel like we haven't taken any of those steps. You know, at the beginning of a comprehensive plan of development, you know, what I've seen in the past, what I've done in the past is had a meeting before it even starts to, you know, to do like vision building and, you know, so what I'd like to see, and I know CCOG does that in other communities because I asked them and they said that, you know, they weren't asked to do it in this community, but now's the time. I mean, I could not vote for a comprehensive plan of development that did not, you know, have any sort of public explanation or, you know, or opportunity for informed feedback. So, you know, I really very, very strongly advise that we do that. You know, I think it's really important.
We had that.
When?
Well, we sent out all the notifications to townships, any major entities that.
School boards, township boards, yeah.
Right, but that doesn't.
Suppliers, the electricity.
Utility
suppliers.
Right, but that's not citizens.
We've published, we had our public hearings to present the plan. And if they don't show up, we can't drag them out of their house. I mean, we had that. What's one more gonna do if they didn't show up to the first one?
Yeah, I think what makes a difference is how you notify people. So if you put a legal ad in the newspaper, that doesn't work really well. You need a press release in the newspaper. You know, you need to, you know, notify, you know, sort of key constituencies that are not public utilities or public entities. So yes, I mean, it's great that we've got feedback from all of these formal institutions, but, you know, to get a really good comprehensive plan of development that reflects the vision and the desires of the entire community, got to get the whole community in. And we just haven't done it. And I know we've done what we've always done before, and this is not meant as a criticism. This is meant as a going forward. Let's, you know, make an effort to bring in, you know, young people with families, right, who are, you know, working 40 to 60 hours a week, and you know, bringing the kids back and forth to football games, and you know, their voice is not heard. And so I'd really like to see that happen.
We've got a comment.
John?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, my name's John Peterson from Wakanda. And we've been in contact with Drew about many questions about the zoning and for our plans going forward. And I guess from our end, he's been very helpful and answered a lot of questions and told us that just be patient. All your fixes are in their comprehensive bill. And I guess for what it's worth, he's been very open and we've been able to voice our opinions. So I guess from our end, we've gotten all of our questions answered and issues that we've had.
I
Been very helpful. So
get phone calls on all kinds of things, and I've never gotten one on the comprehensive plan, not on anything at all. I get them on loads of everything else and emails and people stopping in and nothing on the comp plan. I mean, not one bit of shred of public, other than, public input. Entities have had some, but general public have no. I mean, we've had it been on the agenda for 2 years. I want to get this done in 6 months.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, but I do know, because I've seen it in action, that when you invite the general public in using communication channels that the general public have access to, they're very likely to show up. And I would be shocked if we didn't have lots of people come, who had an interest in the future of the county. I think a lot of people don't even understand what a comprehensive plan of development is. And, I feel as though this, we as a commission could use this to have a much stronger relationship with the public, which is kind of a small d democratic idea. And I would really welcome the opportunity, would be happy to help organize it, would be happy to write a press release, whatever it takes. And I don't see the harm in having a public hearing that's actually publicized, outside of the legal notices. I mean, I not only do I not see the harm, but I think that there's the possibility of some real good coming from it. And I've said enough. I think I've made my point, and I leave it to other commissioners to jump in or out as you choose.
I have a question of where would you suggest it be held? I don't believe that room is appropriate.
Yeah, I know in general, I would suggest that it be held like at the Kozak room at the library, which is large enough to, and they have a really spectacular fancy Zoom setup as well. So people could participate via Zoom. But the Kozak room at the library is free. People are used to going there for public meetings. It's easy to find. And I think that would be, I think that would be the spot, Phyllis.
I think that there's some cost, but perhaps quite a bit of benefit to having sort of a presentation of what the planning board has come up with. Is kind of a grand finale before it comes to our attention. And I think there could be some benefit to that. Whether we all think it's worth the cost is really what matters. I think it could be beneficial. I think that furthermore, I think that Betty's got experience with this. She should put together the rollout, the advertising for it. If you'd be willing to accept that responsibility.
I'd be glad to.
Where would you advertise this where we haven't already done it? I guess, and definitely there's some, if you filled our room, I would be happy. If you filled the Kozak room.
Well, I'd certainly be glad to do my best, and do a with a few weeks notice, get an actual article in the Plain Talk with maybe some quotes, from commissioners about the importance of getting, maybe even put Drew's contact info in there. So if people have individual questions, they can ask them. And maybe get it in the broadcaster, because everybody gets the broadcaster. A very small subset of the county get the Vermillion Plain Talk. And, other newspapers are very small and local, but I think if we also advertise in the broadcaster, we'd hit the general public.
And figuring out the presentation style would be important too. I think it could be that stations, 2 or 3 or 4 stations with the maps, like our map that we just have, maybe a couple of those. And I've got a couple more that I'm making myself of about that size or a little bigger. And I'd be willing to donate that to the cause. And maybe just a little bit of paragraph long, large print things that could sit on the table. We wouldn't necessarily, I don't know that it would be good to do it that way, because then folks could go around and bring it, generate thought and questions. And then after 20 minutes, 30 minutes of that kind of an open house setup, we could answer questions. Planning Commission members, yourself. I'd jump into the mix, but for whatever we as commissioners could give. But so I wonder what the sense of the rest of the commission is.
I have a question. Are you talking about, if you have a presentation, are you talking about going through the whole comprehensive plan section by section, or are you talking about going through part of it, just the things that have changed? That would be.
So usually it's just it's really reviewing the changes, and and having the maps out there with the zones on them, and highlighted any changes that are proposed. And what happens 99% of the time is the public comes in, they get the explanation, they look at the maps, and there's very little else that comes of it. And that means that we've done a good job, right? But it connects the public to zoning so that later on, when they have complaints, right? We've got this comprehensive plan. We, had a public meeting, maybe, and this was the decision of the entire county.
Okay. Because I've been on one with the city when we did a comprehensive plan there, and that's we had some people that did show up at some of our meetings, and some of them, like you said earlier, Betty, that they didn't understand a comprehensive plan at all. And I get it too, because to tell you the truth, before I started getting on one, I didn't understand everything that went with it. So I didn't find that something that wasn't possible. But I do understand, but if they don't have that background, just showing the changes is probably not going to help. It'll help them, but it's not going to be as beneficial as you think. Because they're not. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I was going to say is I think it would be very important in all the news releases to have a link to the comprehensive plan of development, so that people who are interested in land use, they can look at all the details. They can bring it with them on their phone if they want. We can have a copy of it there for people to look through. But to go through a whole comprehensive plan of development, CCOG knows how to do this because they do it in other communities. They run public meetings just like this in other communities. So we can ask CCOG for technical assistance here. And that's, they're used to doing this. I just wish Kristen hadn't left, because she's the one who worked on it, and she would have been really, she is very, very grounded in the comprehensive plan of Clay County.
Do they have anyone at present that we could ask?
I have they hired anyone yet? I mean, the last I saw, they had it posted. I'm the CCOG rep and they had it posted. I don't know if they've actually, if they've got,
I don't know if he stuck around or not. I have not heard again from him in 6 weeks.
I don't think so. I just got an email from Lynn yesterday. Just asking that, everybody be patient with them as they hire some new people and. So
yep,
don't think they
I
have-
got that email too. Yeah.
I
There.
needed that one, but
Yeah, well, I think what's happening is CCOG is going through a transition. They've lost 2 key employees and they've taken on at least one new one. I'm not sure about the second yet, but they're going through big transition right now.
I think that's common though. I think they're in the middle of about 30 years of transmission or
Yeah.
transition as close as I can tell.
Yep. So they really don't
That's the
have
nature of
anyone.
That beast, it's a revolving door.
Mhm. It sounds like they would not have anyone that could really present this in a formal way. They'd probably be so new that,
What happened to Kristen? Where'd she go?
City of Sioux Falls or Minnehaha County, one of those, something like
I
that.
see.
Yeah, their GIS department, yeah.
They may allow her to do 2 days of outside consulting.
They might allow it. I don't know if she's really interested.
Okay, well,
Might be
Never-
worth asking.
yeah.
Because
hurts to ask.
I mean, that would be a real plus to have Kristen. I mean, I think the other alternative would be, I don't know, Travis, is there somebody on planning and zoning who, along with Drew, might be willing to, I don't know, maybe you could do it, or,
I'll be there.
yeah, if you and Drew did it as a team, and we could see if Kristen would come and do the tech, sort of the technical part of it, I think that would work.
I wonder if we want to involve Kristen. I hate to bring somebody back that we're gonna still be working with their former employer.
can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, I don't know if we want to bring Kristen back, even if she was willing to. Just for the fact of, she doesn't work for CCOG anymore. And we can't, I mean, if she were to say something, it's not like we can hold their feet to the fire on something a past employee said.
Yeah, I mean, I could ask Lynn. I mean, she's very, we have a good relationship. I could ask Lynn if that would be okay with her.
Yeah, it would definitely be a 3-way conversation between the 2 organizations and Kristen herself, and 4, I guess, including us. But a lot of the folks that I think do that sort of stuff, if she likely has some pride in her work, and she would probably be a little flattered to be asked to come do this. It may not be such a good deal for Sioux Falls or for CCOG. Well, I think it's worth exploring.
It sounds like she would be the one to really give a cleaner overview of what a comp plan is to the public
True.
and as an introduction. And that way it's not crossing anyone she's working for now or CCOG or what our needs are.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I viewed Mike's comments as being almost, well, not almost, but definitely expressing a need for this sort of a thing.
I think there is. There's a lot of the public that has really no idea what a comp plan is for or intended. And I think just a straight, relatively simple overview of why and what is done, and then getting into the changes that were made.
Yeah, I think you definitely got to put it out there beforehand, but like Betty was saying, it's got to be to a website or something along that line, because otherwise it isn't going to do them any good to come to a meeting if they don't understand what they're starting with. I mean, they can't give us any good feedback if they just see the changes. You have to have a basis to go on before you start on anything like that. So I guess I'd be for to have a meeting. I mean, I think it's all right. Like, I do remember with the city though, we didn't get much feedback, to be honest with you. It was very little. We had our just like the counties, the planning meetings were always open. When we worked on a comprehensive plan, we very seldom ever got anybody there. And I understand. And ours were at night, by the way, so that wasn't a problem there. And, but even when we had the meetings, it didn't seem like we got much input. But I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying that that's what happened. So I just don't want anybody to get their hopes up too high that you're going to get a lot of feedback. I think you're going to get some, but I don't know how much you're going to get. But I do think you need, I don't have a problem with doing it. In fact, I'd probably be, I'll be for it.
Feedback and input is one of the objectives of something like this. And your earlier comments, I was thinking in terms of the educational aspect of it, letting our constituents know what a comprehensive plan is and why we want to have one.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
John?
Sorry, is there any way to put this information out there and then, put your plan out there in the plain talk, in the broadcaster, and then determine if there's a need for a public hearing based if Drew gets any feedback from anyone? Or is this, it kind of sounds like we're wanting to have a public hearing on this.
Yeah. Probably the best is that we would end up putting, maybe just put in some advertisement like in the interviews that you were talking about, Betty was talking about, or in a small ad, just have a little few sentences explaining what the comprehensive plan is and why we have it. And we're going to be presenting that at such and such a day at the public library.
Copy of the comp plan will be on the website, won't it?
Correct.
Yeah, and I thought we'd put a link in whatever publicity we do.
Right.
It's been on the website.
Yes, for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
Thought it was. I've read parts of it, but I'm going, okay. But
But
to
the-
remind people, that's where to find it.
Sure.
How quick are we thinking we can get this done?
Let's see, what's the, how long do you have to advertise it for?
Well, we'd do at least 2 weeks. I mean,
Okay,
there's
so,
there's no set whatever for this. Right?
yes.
Whatever we want.
So once we have a date, 2 weeks from then, I think we can.
The deadline for the Star Publishing is the Friday before. Deadline for the Plain Talk is the Monday before. I don't know if you would put it in the Star or not. Doesn't reach as many people, but
The Star.
yeah, the
Tri-County
Tri-County News.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know that
Sorry,
they
they're
have
owned-
this,
we're
yeah, the
owned by Star.
circulation. I think it's the broadcaster is really what has the circulation. I mean,
You guys
they're,
have a legal paper that you have to adopt or,
Well, yeah,
okay. I just know on
a
our
couple of them.
townships and other boards that I'm on, we all have a
Correct.
legal document that we have to put it in.
yeah. So I'd say once we have a date, we can give ourselves a few days and add a few days to that and publish it. I mean, I could,
Well, depending on how quick you would get it written, I think we're still looking at the first or second week of February. It's a month from now.
okay. Do we want to pick a date?
What's the date for?
We'll also have to reach. out
For
to
the
CCOG.
library presentation.
We'll have to reach out to
You have
CCOG.
to check their availability.
Yeah.
So we're looking at what, the 15th, 16th? I mean, what night?
Let's reach out to CCOG first and see when they're.
Okay, yeah. And the only date that really is not good are Wednesday nights or church nights in town. And I think that's almost universal. I think that's like a Midwest thing. So we'd want to avoid Wednesday nights. Hmm.
The night that most people are available.
And Tuesdays now for basketball since the basketball team's doing pretty well.
And
And
Thursday,
Thursday is almost every other organization in town.
Tuesday and Friday.
Mondays are about the only,
Okay,
Yeah.
and the 14th is Valentine's Day, so.
yep. So how about the 7th?
God, I'd have a date. Cool.
Like I say, let me reach out to Chief Howard and find out.
Okay. If February 7th works, we could certainly do February 7th.
Sure.
I feel pretty confident about that. So you'll let me know the date and then I will take it away.
Well, you'll have to check with the library.
Yes,
That's
we'll
what it
have to
says.
check with the library.
First, is that available?
Anything else for the comprehensive plan?
Yeah. Is there a time preference? 6:30?
Yeah.
We've been having the facility committee meetings at 6:30 and it seems to work well because then you're kind of done by about 8 o'clock and that's a good time for people.
Mhm. And by then, the facilities committee will be done.
Well,
Yeah, and I haven't drifted off
They're
by 8
they're-
o'clock
they're
usually.
so close. I think tonight's the final vote.
If nothing else for the comprehensive plan, we'll move on. The first reading of ordinance 2022-01. An ordinance amending ordinance 2013-04. Being the 2013 revised zoning regulations for Clay County by adding amendment section 3.104 medical cannabis establishments and chapter 2.02 definitions.
I have no questions, so I move approval.
We're gonna probably have to table it
Oh, okay.
because there's language in here that's in the matches up with the comp plan.
Ah, all right then.
So.
Well, then I'll move to table.
Yeah,
And I did end up with a few,
please. Yep,
mainly,
always.
they're mainly form changes, but there are a few that might be considered some substance too.
Let's go over those. Yeah. What do you have for substance?
Okay. And there's a delete under E on the second page on mine at least, county conditional use permit. Near the end, there's an extra A. Any person or entity who proposes to own or operate cannabis, delete that A.
Oh, sure. Okay.
That's just a form
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Under number 2 there, no medical cannabis establishment may convert from one medical cannabis establishment type to another without first obtaining a conditional use permit. I was wondering, what if you were to add another use, MCET?
Sure.
Would that, we could add that.
May convert or
May
add.
convert from one cannabis establishment type to another, or add another medical cannabis establishment type. Does that sound
Yeah.
reasonable?
Yep, yep.
Couple down. I was wondering about the background checks will not be considered by the planning and zoning commissions when reviewing conditional use permits. Who does that? Do we do that when it
You
comes
guys
to
do
us?
that, yeah. And it's more of the idea was it's more of a formality, like go in there and make sure you're actually eligible for this.
Correct.
Before we go through the whole ball of wax and then find out, oh, wait a minute, you got a felony conviction you forgot about.
And
I
you and
mean,
Andy, you and Andy would kind of sort that out before it got to us, so it wouldn't have to necessarily be in a public record.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is for their benefit, not for ours, so.
Yeah, and I've got on the very last line of 3 there, planning and zoning commissions when reviewing, is there an extra A there? I'm
Reviewing a conditional use permit.
reviewing conditional use permits. You might want to delete that A.
Sure.
It sounds picky, but we just will have it
Yep.
in decent shape here. Under standards for issuing of a building permit for a medical cannabis establishment, mainly I had one bracketed. What if the building already exists? In other words, no building permit would be required.
Right.
So that doesn't apply?
That would
we-
not apply in this case, no.
Okay. Next page. With under setbacks, and this is a little picky too, I guess, but what, why would we worry about a setback from a cemetery?
Sensitivity to cemeteries.
To grandma, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I know there's a little cemetery out on, was it University Road? And
Yeah.
somebody
I don't know
built a
what you're
grain
talking
bin
about.
near it, and the owner just lost his mind, or the
Okay.
manager of the cemetery just lost his mind.
Same with the, yeah, same with the church. I can understand
Yeah.
that.
And again,
Uh,
it's setbacks, you can get a waiver for the setbacks.
Pretty
I-
standard on the, for the cemeteries, for the county.
Is, yeah,
I mean, we have it for everything almost. so.
yeah. It's just, I guess I'm not as sensitive as the average guy perhaps to
Sure,
that sort
sure.
of thing. Though I go, I make my Memorial Day rounds every year.
Yes.
All
yes,
that
same
good stuff.
thing, Yeah.
About 1, 2, 3, 4, and mine on my printed copy, about 4 lines down, setback distances should be measured from the nearest property line of the designated cannabis facility to the residential building closest edge. Now, we're looking at residential as well as others. I was gonna substitute the word subject for residential. So it would read cannabis facility to the subject building closest edge.
Good.
Would that be good?
Yeah.
And down a little bit. Next line down, the applicant obtains waivers from all owners of property within the separation distance. I was gonna say such property. The applicant obtains waivers from all owners of such property.
Sure.
It isn't just any property that's out there.
Yeah.
And the next one down, any such authorized landowner that's within the separation distance may waive the separation distance. It isn't any landowner, it's any such landowner is thought of up in the upper part, the residential building cemeteries.
A lot of this
Setback
language is
section.
just copy and pasted from
Yeah,
the CAFO stuff,
yeah,
where we get that kind of. boilerplate.
doesn't matter, it just makes it so that I'm specifying that we're talking about these particular landowners and these particular properties. And additional variance and conditional use factors. Number 3, that all applicable ordinances and regulations will be observed. I sure hope so.
Yeah, yeah. We can strike that one out.
I was thinking that's
Yeah.
sort of redundant perhaps.
Yeah, but does it need to be there just so they understand that just because it's not in this section, it still applies to them?
Well, I guess we should spell that more clearly then. They would be the separation clauses where you say that notwithstanding language in this addendum or this section, all planning and zoning ordinances still apply. I don't remember the exact.
Sure.
I don't remember the exact wording, but that would be what we'd want to do, I think. Travis would make that so it's more plain. Okay. That's that.
Good.
Sorry to burn the time, but.
No.
No, that was
And these-
good.
These were after about 3 glasses of wine last night when I got to this one, so.
Sure.
It could be.
Anything from you, because you're probably gonna be our test cookie in this one.
Well, I guess, we want to get this done as soon as possible, but we want it done right. We don't want to 3 months from now finding out that we need to close some loopholes, so.
Well, I'm glad they came to the table thing not this morning, because I thought, oh man, this is first reading. I hate to be throwing wrenches in the works that slow it down. So I'm really relieved that you are already planning on table.
Yep.
Excellent.
I do have one question. I know I've been part of this, but it just,
Yeah,
on the prohibited districts for cannabis establishments,
yep.
the natural resource conservation. The only reason I ask that is for the growing,
Yeah,
and I'm not 100% sure how they're gonna grow it anyway, if it's gonna need a building.
it's gonna need a building now. They have to
Okay,
do that.
then
Yep,
that's,
Yep.
because there's hardly any building permits allowed within the NRC.
Yeah, and it would have to, not to touch on a sensitive point here, it'd have to involve rezone for that anyway, so.
Something that I thought about but didn't mark, because I was gonna have to go back and do some looking first. Up there in that same section you were talking about, those 4 places where we can go into the zoning jurisdiction. Each of them can be in I2 general industrial is, and that's what our official language is, general industrial for I2.
Check.
We don't have light industrial or,
We have a light industrial and general industrial.
okay.
So that means our general is our heavy.
I2 is heavy, right? So, okay,
And the language for that is for the general industrial, and this kind of ties into with our comp plan,
right.
is those can only be on our major highway corridors. Highway 50, 19, and 46,
Yeah,
the big I.
correct.
Yeah,
And so light industrial wouldn't be a good setting for this, for a few of them, like
Yeah.
testing and
yeah,
manufacturing. Those
Yeah.
are almost shop-like structures, aren't they?
Yeah, I would think light industrial would work for testing. That's really, it's a lab.
Would it be more commercial then?
Well, it could be commercial, but it could also be light industrial or general industrial.
Well, that's what I was
Those are-
wondering about.
light industrial or general industrial. I can look into that more and see if light industrial might be a better fit for that. It might be.
Yeah, it is, I know in other states, they do it in industrial parks. They do it, they do it along commercial strips. They're like offices with
Yeah.
labs.
And light there's some, the purpose sections I'll look at for light industrial and general industrial. Compare the two. And see if we need to.
Yeah,
Was there a reason we did general industrial? I can't remember. There may have been a reason. I want to look at it and then come back.
and for testing, even commercial could be okay, I know it'd be similar to a industrial test lab, not industrial, but a commercial test lab.
Yeah, I
We
think. the
test
reason-
concrete and asphalt and soils. I used to work I've worked for a couple of those.
Yeah,
I think we were hoping to push them closer to town.
yeah, keep them town and keep them all in the major highway quarters, not,
I see.
Because the
And
rezone
commercial,
for-
you could,
Go ahead. Dave.
commercial, they could be out away from town further than,
yeah, or off
Yes.
the.
And I would rather have a commercial
yeah,
away from town, if you're gonna rezone commercial, than just have all of a sudden you've got a heavy industrial spot that is rezoned, may not stay a cannabis testing facility. And it's
True.
already rezoned heavy industrial now,
Or general, but
or general
Yeah.
industrial, whatever. And then all of a sudden you've got zoning for some other unintended purpose.
yeah. So maybe. Interesting.
Or would that fall under the conditional use permit? Would it still be zoned commercial once that entity?
there's some things that are allowed without. In the heavy.
Right.
And again, that's what we're trying to. The commercial and what we're gonna eventually meander towards, because this is gonna come up here in a couple of weeks with. the Campground is a C1 and a C2 district eventually.
Get closer to the mic.
What we're touching on is an issue that is gonna have to, over the next couple of years, we're gonna have to move towards, is a C1 and a C2 district. And have more ag, commercial focus, and then non-ag, but we're getting that way. We're moving that way. And this kind of type, what the discussion you're having right now
Right.
is kind of that discussion we're moving towards.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand it a little better, I guess. And I know you guys have put a ton more work in this that I'm not aware of.
But I'll look again at that general industrial versus there. I seem to remember there's some reason we did that, but I can't remember what it is right now, and I'll look into that.
Yes.
And come back to that. So
Did you get a second on the tabling?
No.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes, motion's tabled. But the motion passes.
Yeah.
The ordinance is tabled. So now moving on to welfare county burials.
So at yesterday or last week's meeting, we talked about maintaining I think you said 1,800, but we wanted to do 1900. Right. 1,900 for funeral assistance. Last year and the year before, it got brought up, well, should we increase that amount? And I went through and I looked, and if you look at that second tab on the Excel sheet I sent, it should, hopefully it was part of the packet.
Yep.
We're pretty good on the 1,900. Hampton Funeral Home is happy with it. The part highlighted in green, the burial, again, 2 years we've been trying to get that. We haven't got that put in. We've got some unclaimed, sorry to be morbid here, guys. We have some unclaimed bodies at Hanson Funeral Home that haven't been buried, been there several years. We've got spots at the cemetery to bury them. There's still going to be a question about who can actually authorize the burial. We'll have to address that. But if we can get $250 for the burial, that'll pay for the cost.
So what's the 1,900 cover? I mean, I thought
Cremation,
the cremation and the burial, correct?
just the cremation.
It was
So-
supposed to be, it was more than just the cremation in the past, in my memory,
Right,
Was it?
the 1,900 was supposed to handle the whole thing.
cover our costs or their costs.
Oh, okay.
And I thought we added the 250 on top of cremation for direct burial because that was more money.
Yeah, we don't
Isn't
do
that
the
the
direct
case?
burial. We don't.
Okay.
No. Huh. I'll talk.
Yeah,
to you.
that's the way I understand it too, that the 1,900 covered everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have plots for them to be buried in.
Yeah.
And that was
Right.
supposed to be done.
Right.
Huh.
So they're sitting on action. Yeah, see, that was all supposed to be taken care of.
Interesting.
Right.
They may not be aware of that. Okay. I will talk to Hanson about that.
It's
Okay.
always put that way in the minutes too. So
Okay.
the Minutes from the first meeting of the year.
Good. That's
Because
okay.
it's county burial, not
Yeah.
just county cremation.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, that's all that one. And then just the building permit report is the last piece.
So then do you guys need to set that fee again
Yeah.
for the first of the year?
Oh, yeah.
Since we didn't do it last week.
I'll move that we set it at the 1,900 for county death care, what? Burial.
Burial.
I'll second it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Building permits numbers or report.
Yeah. Building permit, a lot of building permits this year, a lot of building permits for houses. The reports there, I wonder if you guys had any questions or anything on that.
Yeah, the location of the permits is really interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna try to change my big Excel sheet next year, and I'm gonna try to go what the houses, where they're gonna be, and it's mostly, again, the south end of the county, and then the kind of up Greenfield and University Road is where the major housing is being built. Fairview, Norway, yeah.
I really like this, Drew. I don't think I've ever seen one before. I don't think we've ever had one in the past. I think it's a good deal.
Well,
Kind
I know that.
Cindy used to give them at the end of the year, but didn't actually come in for a presentation. It was just included in your packets for review. So
okay. It was there. I just
probably got lost with a lot of the other reports.
Yeah.
Well, I like the presentation. I agree with Mike that I think the presentation was excellent. Yeah, and if you did have, like, where are they doing this?
Yeah,
Yeah, if you had some numbers over on the township visualization, that would be cool. But well done.
yeah.
I'm happy with it.
And the other big one is the permit value. 2022, we actually had 14 million because there was one permit for, they didn't need a building permit, they got one anyway. But that amount of 10 million across is, and I think, yeah, we had what, 22 new homes this year, and I think the city only had like 12 from what I learned from Ina's office. Usually we're about the same. But yeah, just an explosion out in the county this year with that. So
I was a little surprised by the increase in joint jurisdiction, actually.
yes, yeah, that was, again, there, I think it was 4 houses. And the majority, that's for all projects. That could be 911 addresses,
Sure.
plats, everything. But yeah, decks, stuff like that. You get 2 or 3 decks. Yeah. But joint jurisdiction is usually pretty small.
Curious what effect COVID had on people needing more space in and out of their homes.
Yep.
Dog
Yeah.
houses.
And we don't, we don't do building permits for remodel. These are just new structures being built in addition.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what the permits would have looked like if we had included remodeling in there. That would have been. So I think that's all I've got for you today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so Nick with Erickson Solutions, phone system proposal.
So you guys had in your packets, and you're all kind of aware, but just a quick update for those on Zoom that might not know. Several years ago, we considered a new phone system to solve a lot of the problems that we have with our current system. And it would have required rewiring the building, things like that. And, we'd actually signed a contract and then the company couldn't deliver because they just couldn't work with what they had to work with. However, Vast came in and wanted to propose a phone system for us. At which time we looped in Erickson Solutions because they're our IT provider. And long story short, the new technology doesn't require as much in the way of wiring and such, so that we could have the technology now without rewiring the building, although that's still going to be needed in the future at some point. At least now we could solve our problems with what they have for technology. And so Erickson Solutions has worked with Vonage in the past. And so Nick is here to kind of give us a demo on that. The quote came in less for Vonage, considerably less than what Vast could offer us. So Nick is just going to give a demo and kind of answer any questions.
And this is going to use the old wiring already that's in the
Yes.
building?
I think there's some new equipment maybe needed or recommended at least, but Nick can tell you about that.
Yeah, so but I do think the one thing on Vast is they were offering you both phones and internet.
They were, but even taking out that component, it was still considerably cheaper for
Okay,
Vonage.
okay, perfect, yeah. And this quote from Vonage is for the entire courthouse and the 4-H extension office and highway. Now, I don't know if highway needs more or less. I think I ended up I think we quoted them 4 lines essentially.
I think that's what we were looking at the last time. So that should be pretty accurate.
And like I said, I've had conversations with Lauren at the extension office and 3 lines was good for them. So I think we should be pretty good there. And then I've met with the auditor's office, the treasurer, state's attorney, register of deeds, planning, zoning, and director of equalization. So we came up with a total of, just to kind of review this quote, and I don't know if you guys have seen this?
Yep, we got it.
You have it in front of you. Okay, perfect. So the unlimited extensions, there's 27 unlimited extensions. Then there's the local company number. And then the other one there on there is the US fax number as well, because there are 4 offices that are still utilizing fax. So let me kind of start at the top here. The 27 unlimited extensions, that is essentially 27 phone numbers that you'll get, but you can actually do 3 calls per phone number there. So let's say Carrie has one of those phone numbers. She could have somebody on hold. She could be transferring a call and essentially have another call there as well. The difference with VoIP and true VoIP with Vonage is that it's all connected directly through the Ethernet. So for those of you that are here, you can see that we have what's called a power over Ethernet switch here, which is the proposed for each one of the offices. And this provides power. So this is for the cordless phone over there. And then we have the desk phone that's right here. So you really don't need any other equipment, which I think there may be some equipment. I'm not 100% sure on VAST as far as other equipment that they need to put in, but we can go directly right into the internet with true VoIP into any of the desk phones. Makes it pretty simple. Again, the only piece of equipment that we would recommend is the PoE switch. Now, if we didn't want to do the PoE switch, there's also the ability to plug power directly into the phones or into the cordless system here. So it provides power to those as well. So there, again, there's kind of 2 different ways, but we would recommend this. And the reason that we would recommend the PoE managed switch is so that we can also monitor networking. I know we've had some issues with internet in the past. And so one of the nice things about a managed switch is each one of the offices would have one of these. And so let's say the auditor's office comes in and says, we're really struggling with the internet here. We can use this switch to determine if there's any kind of breakdown from the switch to the users and phones, or is there a breakdown from the router to the switch? And what happens is your internet comes into your modem, then it goes to your router, and then it's going to come to each one of the switches here. So this really helps us, again, determine and monitor your internet. So if there's a breakdown in internet, we can see that on there as well. And then we can go back to, right now we have Midco, and we can tell them like, hey, our switches are up, our router is up, our systems are up. This seems to be a modem problem. And that sometimes happens with your internet providers, and they just need to update those. So again, this is part of the phone project, but we're kind of doing 2 things at once. We're also getting a good handle on your internet as well.
And I don't believe that VAST was using those switches unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if they were going to use something like that.
I feel like with the issues that we've had in the building, just with our own aging switches and technology in different places, this might help you guys track down issues, because like you said, for internet, if we had an issue, it would help you pinpoint where that is. And so I think it's a good step anyway, just to get us where we need to be overall in the building. We've had days where we've been out for almost an entire day where they're trying to track down, and maybe they didn't, couldn't track it down to a bad switch until later in the day. And this might help pinpoint that.
I mean, one question is whether we've got adequate bandwidth for a VoIP system. That makes me really nervous.
Right. And that's the nice thing about the switch too. And maybe part of this process before we approve it is just making sure that we go around and just check out each one of the offices, making sure that we have that bandwidth there, because you do want to be, as you can see, I'm hardwired in here, right? We don't want to use Wi-Fi for our phone system. We want to be hardwired in. And the hard part in, an older building like this is a lot of times you're going to have maybe 1 or 2 Ethernet cables coming into each office. So they'll switch, and we would recommend the 28 port switch. Then that adds 28 ports that we can do to each one of the offices. So we can hook up the PoE switch to all of the systems and all of the VoIP phones. And the nice thing is, it's like, even if you guys decided like, oh, we don't want to go with Vonage, we want to go with a different VoIP provider, the true VoIP providers are all the same. Now, again, I don't know if I don't know a lot about VAST, but I don't know if they have another system that they have to put in order to provide the VoIP phones. But like Zoom has VoIP phones. There's other companies, 8x8. Vonage is something that Erickson Solution Groups uses. We recommend it to a lot of our clients as well. Works really easily. They have good support. And again, we know it, right? And we're part of the courthouse. So kind of, I guess, one throat to choke when you have initial issues. So if you have issues with the VoIP phones, you could call us. We would have access to your Vonage portal, and we would be able to assign new users, change credentials, anything kind of like email, pretty similar to that as well on there.
Does this affect the 911 system at all?
So that's a good question. They did just pass a new law. I can't think of it off the top of my head here, but they have settings in the VoIP portal that we can turn on so that it makes sure that your emergency services are all up to date. That was what it had to do with emergency services. And really what it was looking at is a lot of the VoIP systems, including Vonage, you can actually use your cell phone or your computer to make and receive phone calls, to check your voicemail via email. You can even use your computer to send faxes. So what they wanted to do is there's a setting in there that it obtains your IP address so it knows where you are. So that way, if you were at home using Vonage or somewhere else, they would know where you're at. And they also use it, I believe, for like floors, so they kind of know where you were at for those floors. Was that what you were kind of asking on the?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was trying to figure out whether the system is adequate to ensure 100% communication with when people call 911.
But we're not changing
Yeah.
the 911 center.
Right. Just that was my question.
Okay.
We're not changing that. I'm good with it. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
This would just be for the courthouse.
Okay.
For those offices. that I
Doesn't
mentioned.
affect 911 at all.
No,
No,
Excellent.
no.
No,
But
the sheriff's-
there is a setting in there that we do turn on here.
the safety center is on their own phone system and they would stay that way.
Okay. Excellent.
So as I mentioned, with the Vonage, you actually have access. So with True VoIP, again, you're plugging right into the Ethernet. And then you also have what they call a client on your computer. So you could plug in a headphone. And so each user that we set up, so like Carrie would be an actual user in Vonage. And so she would have a desk phone. We could also then put the client on her computer. And then if it was something the courthouse wanted to do, we could also put it on your cell phone, which is awesome if you're ever having situations where people are needing to work from home with the COVID. There's opportunities to do that as well. And we can even pick up phones and move them around as well. It makes it very, very easy to move those phones around. If someone say, comes as an employed and then they leave, again, we could go back into the portal and we can change your username and set that all up. The VoIP is a little different in the fact that you do have a specific user. And I believe we only had one office. Register of Deeds has a phone in their vault. So they have a phone at the front desk, which aren't necessarily tied to a user. And we can program those to be kind of a generic purpose phone. Even though they are tied to a user, it's not that anybody couldn't walk to Carrie's desk and still answer that phone. It's just how the system works. It's tied specifically to that email in there. So a little bit different, and it's just a kind of a change of thinking of how that works. Because right now, the system that I believe you guys have is like, you know, one main number for each one of the offices, and then they have extensions in each of the office. We would do the same thing where you would have that one main number for each of the offices, but then every user would actually have their own phone number. In the VoIP system though, if they made phone calls out, we can actually tell it that the outbound caller ID is only that main number. But let's say, for instance, you know, one of the users in one of the offices, they notice that they get a heavy traffic of a certain phone call. Maybe that's a number we want to publish, or we can also set up what's called a virtual receptionist. So someone will call in, hello, you've reached the auditor's office. You know, our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Please press 1 for X. And then that would go to Carrie. Please press 2 to Y. And then that would go to one of her other, you know, so that way you kind of have this, you have this virtual person who's then routing those calls as they're coming in. And maybe, you know, maybe in the treasurer's office, that would be important because there's certain people that handle certain things. And we can help set all those things up as well. And then when you have your out of office hours for each one of those lines, you know, it could say something like, hello, you've reached the auditor's office. These are our office hours. We're currently closed. Please call back during office hours. Or if you wanted to set up voicemail, you could do that as well. We could actually do voicemail for all 27 unlimited lines if we wanted to. A lot of companies don't want to do that. They just want to have one specific person that gets the voicemail rather than having all these voicemails out there. So we can shut those off. We can turn those on. There's a lot of settings that we can set up for the users on there.
So
I have a question.
a voicemail for each of the offices, one primary one?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, we could set up a primary, and probably what we would do is we would set that voicemail up specific to one of the users. So what would happen is that we would say in, you know, if you wanted to do voicemail in out of office, you know, in the evening, Saturday, Sunday, we would have, you know, voicemails go right to Carrie, and then she would get all of those. We could set up to where if she wasn't always going to check those, we can add a second email or even a third email in there. So Carrie gets the voicemails via email, and then even another user gets the voicemails via email. So if she's gone, we can do that.
That's all available at the highway shop too, even though it's remote?
Yep, yep.
And through the computer setup, we can send text messages out.
Yeah, so okay, so then that would be the true VoIP, yes, and that's what you're getting with Vonage. Yeah, SMS texting can be utilized on the client, on your computer, or on your cell phone. Yeah, and depending on how you would want to do that, we can set it up a couple of different ways, you know, per user. So then again, you would have this different phone number, or you can set it up so that it looks like it's coming from planning and zoning when you get into the client as well. But one thing is like right now too, we have on the quote, so we have 18 of these desk phones. So this is what the desk phone will look like right here. And then we have, I believe we're doing 9 of the cordless, which Carrie, I don't know if you want to just grab that. I have it on the base on the other side there.
What level encryption is there in the cordless?
I guess I don't know that off the top of my head here, but I can find that out.
Well, how many phones? You said 18 phones?
18 desk
Desk
phones. And then it is, move my pen here. So it's 18 desk phones and then 9 cordless phones. And if you want me to, would it help to get a breakdown of each one of the offices of what they're getting?
No, that's fine. Mike, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was looking at this and VAS says, I'm trying to figure out why there's such a difference in cost between VAS and Vonage. And my question is, VAS says that they will include all the service and support for all equipment and troubleshooting at no cost. Is Vonage the same way? I can't see it and find it in theirs.
Yeah, so support with Vonage, yes, you have that support with Vonage, but then because you're on retainer with Erickson, you would also have our support as well. I mean, once we get it up and running. We did quote anywhere from, I think it's like 25 to 30 hours to get you guys set up. And that would be a project for the initial setup for Vonage. But once we have that set up, then it would be part of the retainer.
Okay,
And
so Vonage just has that same thing, but that's basically through you guys.
Yeah, with us and with Vonage, you would get both, you know, the retainer support, and then we would also essentially utilize Vonage's support as well.
Okay, so and that would be at no extra cost to us.
Right, yep.
What I liked about it and what a lot of the other department heads, I think, you know, express the same thing, is that it's nice to have that one-stop shop. You know, we just call Erickson's for the IT needs now. We would call them for the phone needs as well with the Vonage phone system.
Yeah,
I guess-
and nothing
Go ahead.
against Vonage. We just don't have access, and we don't know, not Vonage, nothing against Vast. We don't know them, and we wouldn't have access. So I mean, if a user called in and had questions about Vast, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to assist. Whereas with Vonage, when we initially set it all up, you know, we'll work with Carrie or whoever it may be, and then we'll create Erickson as an admin in there without taking one of your license of those 27 licenses. We can just be an admin without having a phone line. And then that way we can get in. And again, if you have any kind of issues, we would be able to take care of those issues or assist. And we know the systems.
So you could do some troubleshooting remotely.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, most of it, we can do it all remotely. Yeah, pretty simple on that front there.
I noticed there was an implementation support zeros out essentially.
Yep.
With from Vonage. And how much, you said so many hours, how much dollar wise do you think we'll have for setup for Erickson's?
I believe we'll be able to use bucket hours. So the bucket hours that we have already through the courthouse, like I said, probably anywhere from 25 to 30. And then I would also estimate 6 hours to set up the power over Ethernet switches. So there would be an additional 6 hours for the PoE switches. So the costs that are outside of the Vonage quote are going to be, you know, the bucket hours that we're going to utilize. Let's just say 30 for getting all of Vonage set up. And then it's going to be 6 hours for the switches, which we're going to do. We would recommend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 switches. The extension office already has a PoE switch when we redid all of their networking over there. So they're all actually set up and ready to roll. We would have to do some cabling at the extension office. And then at the highway department, I'm just not sure. I'm not familiar with her. I haven't been out there yet. I don't know if we'll need to do any kind of cabling. So there may be some cabling that we need to do there. And then, so yeah, the big cost would be $588 is what a 28 port switch is. So we're looking at $3,528 for hardware for those PoE switches. And that would be a one-time cost.
This is maybe worth me passing a question on to Ide Bailey regarding the ARPA funding. They came out with the final rule a few days ago, and I was just scanning through here a few minutes ago, looking through the overview, and there is a section that talks about technology infrastructure with a sentence that says, technology infrastructure to improve access to and the user experience of government IT systems. And here's the kicker, as well as technology improvements to increase public access and delivery of government programs and services. And I just wonder if like implementation of these switches, cabling, the new phone system, that kind of thing would fall under that, because that's public access. Like right now, my office has one phone line. If it's busy, it's busy. And so at least this would give us better public access because we would have additional phone lines. Cabling obviously is going to give us better access delivery of services to the public, because almost all the software that we use anymore is web-based. And so that's, our our IT is our lifeline to the public, essentially.
So will you send a
I will.
request? Have we heard back from our last request yet?
No, I just emailed back and forth with Patrick at the end of last week, and basically they said they didn't get the report that we sent, but Patrick has an email showing that the report was attached, so he's sending it back to them again.
Thank you. Thank you for following up, because that would be great if ARPA would pay for that project and all or part of this one. Whoa.
Yeah.
How much is the equipment costing us? Because I don't see that in front of me.
Yeah, so that's a new cost that I brought, and I'll send that to you, Carrie, again. So again, for the 5 PoE switches, which are 28 port switches, based on the numbers that I'm looking at for both phones and systems. So what we would do is we would use the switch to not only power and provide internet to the phones, we would use the switch to provide internet to all of the systems, any printers. I think the treasurer's office has the printer. I think there might be one other printer in an office. So we would use that to power or to provide internet to all of the systems as well, which again gives us that ability to see how the internet is being distributed to each one of the systems. So if there is any issues with your ISP, we can provide that feedback there.
And that's going to help us, I think, if we do have outages for you guys to track it down, because I know the last couple times Arthur was here, from 8 until like 3 o'clock, trying to figure out where exactly the outage was coming from. And this would help that, because then at least you could check in on those switches.
Yep.
Narrow it down that way.
This will or will not use our old phone lines.
This is going to just use internet or just Ethernet cabling. Yep.
So our
It's
old phone lines will be
basically
obsolete then.
right. It's basically what the treasurers and the state secretary's office are using now through Verizon, only it would be through Vonage instead.
And there's a straight internet though, correct? Theirs is an Ethernet. That's straight internet.
Well, Ethernet is.
Well, but this is gonna be hard cabled in.
Same thing.
Where theirs is Wi-Fi, I believe.
Oh, some of them might be using Wi-Fi. Yeah. Actually, I think I looked at all of those phones. I think they're all connected to the internet. They all had cables running to them.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Very similar. The goal here though with the PoE switch is like I don't have to run a power cable to this, so it saves you one cable, which is nice. And again, it's all running through there.
And we won't experience a slowdown on internet or Ethernet.
Not with the switches.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, that's the goal of the switches, is to provide that.
Because that always was the problem before.
And I don't think the state's attorney said that they had any kind of issues with their VoIP.
They don't now, no.
Early on they did.
She was worried about once everybody hooked in, what that would do.
Yeah, I don't think there should be any issues as long as we have switches in each one of the offices. We'll be good on that. But I don't think it's a bad idea that we maybe just double check all the Ethernets that we're going to be jacking into in each one of the offices. I mean, that way if we find any kind of issues, then we could address that at that point. So that would maybe be my only one caveat is just kind of looking at testing the internet that's coming in and determine which cable we're going to use in each one of those offices, and probably taking a look at highway too. I mean, I know we've been out there and we have some documentation on highway.
So if I'm reading this right. No, go ahead.
No, that's fine. You're there. Go.
Okay, what I'm reading this right is then that for Vonage, it's going to cost us $800, $800+ a month. And for VAS, it's like $1,300 a month. Am I incorrect on that?
Yes.
Okay, so
And also, something to think about too, is I did get that email, and I don't know whether you got that yet this morning, Mike, but got that email this morning from the state that they are not renewing their contract with CenturyLink at the end of the year. Right now, we do piggyback off that contract.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to do something by the end of the year.
Okay, so does this include now the cost here? We're getting all new phones, correct? To also equipment?
Yeah, and that was something I was going to go back to. So right now you're getting all 18 of the desk phones, which is this phone here. They're giving these for free, and then you're paying for the cordless phones. But even like Drew and I were chatting, You can actually you can just use your computer if someone wanted to use their computer. Now, I would suggest that we get desk phones for everybody at first. You know, and then, you know, if someone didn't necessarily want to use it, you wouldn't have to use it. So I think we probably have those, so they're there. But technically with this True VoIP system, you no longer have to use the desk phone to make calls. You can use your system here.
Okay.
So it's resetting here as well.
Well, I don't think this is a hard answer then. I mean, you're gonna go with the one that's $500, about $500 cheaper. And you're making me think that Vonage is a better answer because you guys work with them more than you do with VAS. Am I correct?
Yeah, and again, I mean, nothing against VAST at all. We just don't know their systems. But the total for the Vonage is 641 currently. Now, you'll notice at the top that this quote actually ended on November 30th, so it's a little bit older. I have asked them for an updated quote just to make sure that we're still for those numbers. I sent our rep today an email on there, but I don't see any kind of issues on that. The last piece that I do just want to make clear is the US fax number. So this is for faxing through email and through the Vonage portal. So it's essentially paperless faxing. And then when they come in via email, or users can log into the portal and access it that way. And if you do send faxes, paperless faxes through the portal, it is HIPAA compliant. It covers compliancy there. And we can do 5 users. So for instance, there's 4 numbers and we have like the treasurer's office has a fax line. We can set up 5 users to utilize fax in the treasurer's office. And I believe right now, the way that they even have their fax coming in, it's going directly to, pardon me, I don't remember her name.
It is, it goes directly to Rhonda.
Rhonda, yeah. So she was very familiar with that style. I think they were still using the machine to send it out. But we could do user training to show her. It's very simple to send it through email. And when the person on the other end receives the fax, it doesn't look like email. It looks like a fax when it comes out of the machine. Or again, you can utilize the Vonage portal to send faxes as well. And I've included that. I included some of that in our 25 to 30 hours of setting this all up is user training, right? I mean, this is a new system, so we would, go user to user, make sure they feel comfortable. We would probably want to set some guidelines of like, who do we want to use the mobile app versus not maybe using the mobile app. We could set it up for everybody. The nice thing is too, on the mobile app, you can actually turn that off. So like right now, when I'm at my office, my desk phone rings, I have my computer ring, and I have my cell phone ring, all with Vonage, but you can turn off different devices. It's pretty easy on there. It's probably, anybody can get a hold of me anywhere, so. You may not want that.
There's advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah.
There are times when I would like that and probably other times when I would just sign out, so.
Right.
So the cordless phones, we're paying a monthly rental on those,
You're correct. Yep. And that's the
the W56Hs.
yep. And the Yealink Direct IP, the W60. So that's the package here. So I do think we're going to need one more of those. So that's where that number may change a little bit. Because you do need to have this receiver in order to do that. But we could have one receiver and then you could have 3 of those phones there.
And since we're renting, so if something happens to a phone, it's
covered. I mean, unless you like drove over it, I don't know, or like chucked it out your window. I'm not sure that they would necessarily cover that, but
there's days.
I believe that they're gonna cover a lot of it. And that's the benefit of renting here.
Fits of rage not covered.
So if you're renting, then new technology comes out in a few years or whatever, is there a lease period where then you could upgrade?
I believe, we could always make a case for that with Vonage. I don't necessarily have anything in writing saying that they would upgrade us, but I think if we got to the point where it's not working or they've truly come out with a lot better technology, that we could make a case for them.
This is a 3-year contract here.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
What are the recovery fees and emergency services fees? What are those? Do you know? I know it's the Vonage stuff.
Yeah,
Isn't that just standard internet?
yeah, well,
You
it's.
pay on your cell phone right
It's
now?
it's standard, just like the governmental fees that you're paying, the 911, emergency fees that you're paying there. And that's where, usually with True VoIP, you end up saving a little money because their fees aren't as high necessarily as like a, DSL. So you end up kind of saving some money there. But I mean, you guys on this, I've actually never seen one of our clients get $14.99 on unlimited extensions. Usually they're $19.99. So that was a really good deal that they gave us on there. And then we haven't talked about the local company numbers. So 7 of those for the 7 different offices, except for planning and zoning. I didn't think you necessarily needed a separate company number. And so this is where VoIP gets a little bit different. Those numbers are just numbers that are used to call in. So we set that up as your virtual receptionist, and that's where people call into. And then depending on where the call is routed, it routes to those users in that office. They require you to have a local company number when you're working with multiple lines. But since we're only working with essentially one user in zoning and planning, opportunity to save a little money there. That number is just going to call right in. And we could still.
Carrie, does this have the facilities manager phone?
No, I don't think I included that in there.
Have wireless?
They're gonna need that. So we'll have to add one in there.
And what office? That's just another office there.
It's a new office that we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, probably just run to the cell phone. We don't know where they're at.
I was just wondering, like, would it be more beneficial for them just to use a cell phone? Since they're not probably gonna be in their office a whole lot.
And eventually bopping between at least 2 buildings.
Yeah,
But do we want his number? I mean, are we gonna get him a cell phone, or are you planning on?
it could go either way. I mean, Rod has the county cell phone. Other people, we just give a reimbursement. So I think it could go either way.
Well, he needs one where he can go on vacation and leave that phone here,
Yeah.
so people aren't bothering him. That's what Rod does. Or should do. Now it does it all the time, but.
Well, we could, so you can, with the Vonage app. So this is the Vonage app on my cell phone here. And it's separate from my actual cell phone. So I have the ability to call out, and when it calls out, it has my office line on there. And then up in this corner here, if you click on your name, I can actually mute this device. So then he could turn it off on his cell phone. But he would want to forward that on. So they're not just getting nobody there on that side of things. But that's the nice thing, right? Is even if he doesn't have an office, we can add a line and we could add a physical phone, and I could prop it up anywhere, and then we just turn the volume down, and then he has it on his app or on his system. And then when he has an office, then we can move it. I mean, that's the nice thing about VoIP, right? Is it's like we end up programming the device to that specific line, but we can also disconnect that device from that line if we need to later on. There's a lot of options with the True VoIP solutions. It was very nice.
Well, let's say we need to get him a landline. Can we add that?
Yeah. We haven't locked into anything yet. So yeah,
Once we lock in, I mean.
yeah, we can add even later. I don't know if they'd give you the $14.99. I would have to ask on that, but most likely they're pretty aggressive on their pricing. So
I mean, we'll know within a month here.
okay. Yeah, so we can always add that later on, and then they'll just add it in there. So I'll probably send you just an update with the 6 hours for the switches, and then the pricing for the Power over Ethernet switches on there.
Okay.
So labor and those switches. The last piece of that though is there is a cost for the management piece in there. And there's a month or the yearly cost of $100 per switch on those.
So it'd be like $500.
$500 a year
Yeah.
for the management of those switches.
And I just sent an email out for Ike Bailey to let us know whether this is an ARPA expenditure. So what I read, it should be, but it depends how broadly they're interpreting it.
So this bid is good till the end of the month?
I'm gonna have them update it, but I think they should change it. Okay. They're usually pretty good about keeping it the same. But we've been kind of going back and forth on things, so that's why it has the November 30th date on there. I asked for an updated one, so I can send Carrie an updated one here. Go from there as well. Any other questions online there?
I think you've covered it pretty well.
I'm fine.
Very good.
So we'll try and make a decision at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank
Anything
you.
else for that?
Really helpful.
Oh, yeah, thank you guys for letting me come. Appreciate it very much. I'm just gonna grab these things out of the way though, if I can. Grab the toys, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Ina, are you on or are you coming over? Nick, forget something?
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Mike, we also have your laptop. We'll be giving you a call to go over the issues that you were having with that, so we can make sure to get that fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Ready? Okay. Yeah. You know, we're switching over to ProVal, gonna go live with it this year for our assessments. And there's just a lot of programming issues that I'm not.
That wasn't, oh, what was that?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I didn't push the button up. With this ProVal, we're going live with it for our assessments, and there's just a lot of hidden little things that I'm not used to program. And of course, ProVal is very good about support, but they also have, I don't know how many other counties that they're working with. So they don't always get back right away. And what I would like to do is hire Matt Archer. He was the director and he's worked with ProVal over in Yankton. He's not with Yankton, but he is also doing some ProVal and some training in their office over there. And I know Lexus had a couple of questions about, I don't know if she sent the agreement with them.
I don't think it was sent out to these guys just yet.
Okay, so there's a few issues that, because it said something about, and what we did is essentially copy the agreement from what Yankton had used. But the technical support is what it's for ProVal and SQL Server and Crystal reports, which are SQL Server and Crystal reports are things I have not worked with. So, and he would do it for $50 an hour, which it would include his drive time because he's in Yankton. And we put a cap on it for $2,500, which would be 50 hours. So, yeah. Which I don't think it's going to take that long. He does not think it will take that long.
So do you have that in your budget, the 2,500?
I'm thinking so. I mean, this is start of the new year. And I did turn back in almost $14,000 last year. So I don't think it's an issue. But you know, it's too soon to tell almost.
Yep. So I know Alexis has questions on that contract.
Yes,
That she
yes.
has not been able to address yet, so.
Yes, so I guess we can work out that contract, but I just want, I guess maybe I want to know that you guys are okay with me getting somebody to help with this.
Yeah,
Okay.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Mhm. As long
Okay,
as
and
it's
then
approved.
What's that, Phyllis?
I said just as long as the contract is approved.
Right.
yeah, and then, and I wanted to get it in, because you won't meet until the end of the month.
Correct.
And
You know when he's gonna start these classes or training?
hopefully this week he'll be over. Because that's why I wanted to get it. I didn't want him to come over and then you say, no, we're not.
Well, so there won't be a contract in place, though.
No, I know.
I guess you'll have to explain that to him and see what he says.
Okay. And I don't think he would have any problem with that. But hopefully we can get something that looks. Because I would like to be able to get my notices run first part of February. So because they have to be out by the 1st of March, so we're kind of running with some help. So.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a consensus to go ahead with $50 an hour with a $2,500 cap. And, you know, I think we can sign off on it informally. And then, you know, at the next meeting, do the formal signature.
Okay. Okay, I'll have Lexus work on it and
Mhm.
stuff and see. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Rod's not gonna be on, is he?
I don't think so. And it was
Okay.
just the diesel quotes.
Everybody get to see the diesel quotes?
Yes.
Yes.
It looks like Vol and Oil's the low bid.
Yes.
I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Let's see,
The WIC contract?
what's that?
WIC?
Well, I was gonna go to the Andes,
Oh, okay.
the addendum number 1 to the law enforcement center. They did update that line.
We need to move to approve as amended then?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
What are we voting on? I believe this was
Oh.
added to the agenda before we were on.
Oh, sorry, this was the addendum for the joint law enforcement center to do the cleaning that we had discussed last week.
Oh, okay.
They just had to update it a little, they had to change a sentence.
Very good. Thank you.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. Everybody get to see the vouchers?
Yeah. Must be doing some more work on the new building out there? Is that what the door install and high bay lights were for?
I assume that's what they were for, Dick. I'm not sure, but I thought the same thing, but I'm assuming that's where they were for.
Yeah, I was thinking must be for the, well, there's a door install.
For the highway department? or-
Yeah, overhead door, I think. it was.
Yeah.
The big overhead doors. And then there were high bay lights and wiring to hook them up. So I'd assumed it was maybe the new building.
Is it just one door?
I think
So I
so.
missed that one because we did approve a door for the Clover Hall on the 4-H grounds.
Oh,
Okay, maybe we better check this.
Let me
it
take a
could
look.
possibly be that. I guess I assumed like Dick did that it was the building out at the county shop, but it could be that one.
Let me
But
just
the
take-
lights, the lights were-
Under.
Which vendor is that? Do you have that in front of you?
Oh, no, let me take, I'm trying to track that down right now.
I'm trying to open it too, just to see.
Okay.
yeah, I had it up earlier.
So like $6,900 for a door and
Yeah,
This was just an installation is what it said. I think we may have bought the door separately, the way it looked. Where are we at here? Come on, Hammond.
I don't know which vendor to look for right off the top
Yeah,
of my
me
head
too.
either.
Me.
I know it didn't grab my attention as something that was off at all.
Oh, it's County Jail Repairs. and Raycom Corporation.
Oh.
County door install for $608.
There it
Must-
is, yep.
Yeah. Is that for our garage door over here?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it was more like the entry door into the Sally Port. I guess I didn't question that one. Andy, reviews and approves all of his bills before they even come to us. I seem to
Can
remember.
answer that one, Dick. So I didn't know which one you were talking about. What that is a sensor that tells the computer and dispatch that the overhead door going into the jail Sally Port is closed. The purpose for that is then the next door to get into booking won't open if that door is open. So they have that sensor there. And we've had that for, many, many years, but it did degrade and it had to be replaced here a few months ago.
Sure, I understand. And there was another one for high bay lights with and there's a separate item for a control box, I think it was.
Is that on the same invoice?
No, this was different. It was a different vendor.
Okay, that's not mine then.
I just, try to get my act together here.
is that with Nelson Lighting Electric?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Nelson Electric, and
Yeah.
that's for $4,100.
Yeah.
I figured that must be for the lighting in the new building or something.
Well, that said something about highway.
Yeah,
That's what,
that's the highway.
did
Yeah.
he fix something at the Wakanda shop?
Possible?
Because that would make more sense if you had Nelson.
Yeah,
Really?
it's for LED lights. Maybe they replaced the high bay lamps and had a conduit. Oh, it was $2,900 more for the conduit and box than for the lights themselves. So looks like a rewire of an existing building or I thought I jumped when I saw the garage door too. I jumped right to thinking it was the new building, but
That or it's
probably
it might be the weed building, the new one.
The
okay.
weed building
That wasn't,
edition.
That wasn't
that's
complete.
what I was thinking. I was
Okay.
thinking weed building.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Just checking, and then I was a little amused by the gloves to catch bats.
So the
Hopefully-
treasurer's office had a bat last week, Thursday, and it didn't move by Friday morning, and it was like all the way up above their door by the ceiling, kind of tucked in behind like the electrical conduit that runs on the outside of the walls. And So Friday, when it hadn't moved, we're like, okay, what are we gonna do with this thing? Sandy came in on Thursday and couldn't get it down for us. And so my husband was off work that day and he's tall. And so we figured, well, if he can get in here and get it, but I didn't have like any gloves that were good for that purpose. So I told him to go to Runnings and pick up a pair of gloves and we would just claim that for reimbursement. But yeah, so he got up on our ladder and got the bat. He said it was really stuck in there. It had like wedged itself behind that conduit and couldn't get out.
Probably
Was it still alive?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it was
Mad.
It was just clicking, you know, and making that little noise they make. And he took it outside and it didn't want to get off of his hand. It wanted to just kind of like crawl up the glove. So he put it in like a knot hole in the tree so that it could fly away when it was ready.
At our house, Anna and I are bat specialists, and I said, I hope you have a good landing net too, because that's usually what's necessary
Well,
also.
tell your husband thank
Thank
you.
you.
That is a really kind service to
I
the
have
public.
pictures too.
Cool.
Yeah, I just had a question about the interstate power supply. Over 2,800 for a radiator leak and almost 1,700 for a fan belt. It seemed like there had to be more to it than that because a fan belt isn't 1,600.
It's
bucks.
possible. We only have like this little space to put the description. We can pull out the bill if you want to take a look.
They also do our service.
Yeah.
They do, yeah.
That's who, since we don't have a mechanic anymore, that's who we're contracting with.
Okay.
My guess is that there's labor involved in that because it is interstate power and it's probably, since it's interstate, it could even be some of the equipment where you can get bigger bills with that.
It's unfortunate that Rod's not on here because he could probably answer that right off the top of his head.
Yeah.
He would know which piece of equipment it was, but.
I think we're okay here anyway.
And he does review all the bills and sign off on them before they even
Okay.
come to us.
Yeah.
So.
I'd say move to approve them.
All right, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. The WIC contract amendment.
So it looked to me like this was just a technical change requested by the state. And so that has no material change. So I'd move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Hammond.
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, motion passes. I don't think we missed anything. Does anybody have anything else before we go into executive session? We need to go into
Oop.
executive session for contractual and employee personnel, sorry.
Personnel. Okay. Move to go into executive session.
Second.
A motion and a second, roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
yes.
Mochler.
Yes, we're in executive session.
Okay, give me just a second here to put people in the waiting room and pause the recording.
Move to come out of executive session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mike, are you okay?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay. Roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes,
Mochler.
Yes, we're in regular session. The thing on the garage. I'm wondering if we shouldn't look into insulating it. We're gonna have a skid loader parked for the year or for the winter. The county shop has 2 skid loaders. Rod said we can have one for the winter. it'd be a lot nicer for it if it was heated. It's just something we maybe should look at.
Yeah.
How much?
I don't know. I mean,
Are there block heaters on the skidders? I assume there are.
I'm sure they are.
That Midwest Insulation does spray foam. I think that's who we had.
And that's probably gonna be the easiest. It's gonna cost a little more to do the spray foam, but it's gonna be the best and easiest for a building like that, I think.
That's what I'm thinking.
So we can get bids if everybody thinks, if they're okay with looking at it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So do I. I think that's a great idea.
We need to,
That'll make quite a difference, even with the block heaters on the skid loader, it'll still make a heck of a difference.
well, and it might be a good place for them to be able to work too in the winter.
Right?
We need to measure the door just to make sure the skid loader will fit in there before we spend any money.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to suggest a board stretcher for the building. Mhm. Could stand to be a bit bigger.
yeah. Yes, it could.
Okay.
You know, and then that's gonna be the other thing. Well, I mean, we can worry about that when the jail gets built, because we'll have a place to park underneath then, right, for stuff like that?
Yeah.
If
When
we
the
plan
jail-
for it,
In the new building?
No,
No.
with the underground parking that they have right now under the jail,
Oh,
or under the
yeah.
law enforcement center. But then I wonder how well that works trying to get a skid loader up an icy ramp.
I know my husband accidentally hit the wall with the patrol car one time trying to get out of there. So yeah, I don't know. It does get icy. I know there was heating under the pavement when the building was built,
Okay.
and they came back to like cut the relief cuts in the concrete or something and cut through it. So it's never worked from the start.
Oh,
I'm
lovely.
sure.
That was always what I had heard anyway. Maybe Andy knows.
How could
but
they
that's
cut
what
it that deep?
I had heard.
Anyway, well,
Hmm.
that's 2-3 years down the road, I guess, if
yeah,
everything worked out. So where's Midwest? You said Midwest Foam?
I can look through some of our bills. We did it actually, last year to my house. Yeah,
Okay, if you just want to send that to Carrie.
I will try to find it. Yep.
Anybody have anything else?
I'd like to know that too, because I've got a little foaming project I'd like to have done.
Okay.
If nothing
Move-
else, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to come out of adjourn until next year, next meeting.
Next year.
Yeah, I'll do that, yeah.
Nice
Second.
try, nice try.
Good night.
So I have a motion. Did we get a second yet?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hammond,
Yes.
Manning,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Packard,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, now.